July 3rd, 1943, Belgorod, southern Russia. Dust drifts across the steppe like smoke from an unseen fire. Under the canvas shade of a field tent, a group of German officers gathers around a map stretched across a folding table. Cigarette smoke curls upward as the rumble of engines rolls faintly in the distance. The growl of hundreds of tanks idling on the plains. At the center stands General Hermann Hoth, commander of the 4th Panzer Army. His fingers trace the ridges and villages on the chart, the northern and southern pincers of Operation Citadel, Germany's grand plan to encircle the Soviet bulge around Kursk. "The Bolsheviks are finished," Hoth mutters confidently. "Their peasant machines won't hold against tigers and panthers." Beside him, Colonel von Strachwitz, a seasoned panzer commander, laughs. "The T-34, a tractor with a gun, will burn them before they can even see us." Around the tent, heads nod. The mood is confident, arrogant even. For months, they've been preparing for this offensive, the largest armored assault the world has ever seen. Over 2,700 German tanks, including the newest Panther and Tiger Wunder, are poised to break the Soviet line. Outside, the sun beats down on endless fields of wheat and dust. Mechanics swarm over tanks, tightening tracks, loading shells, checking engines. The Panthers glint under the sun, sleek, deadly, engineered to perfection. The Tiger crews boast that no enemy shell can penetrate their armor. Across the steppe in the Soviet lines, it's a different world. The Red Army has no illusions of grandeur. At a forward position near Prokhorovka, Sergeant Ivan Petrov leans against the hull of his T-34-76, wiping grime from his face. His tank is battered, paint scorched, the turret scarred from shrapnel. The machine smells of oil and sweat, its armor patched with scrap metal. He turns to his gunner, Mikhail, who spits into the dirt. "They say the Germans are coming with new tanks," Mikhail says. Ivan shrugs. "Doesn't matter. We've beaten them before. We'll beat them again." Behind them, the Soviet defenses stretch for miles. Minefields, anti-tank ditches, and barbed wire layered across 8 fortified belts. Engineers, peasants, and soldiers have worked day and night for weeks, digging, wiring, planting explosives. Unseen by the Germans, more than 3,600 T-34s wait across the steppe, the heart of Stalin's armored force. They are not elegant. They are not beautiful, but they are simple, rugged, and built to last. In Moscow, Marshal Georgy Zhukov studies his own maps beneath a dim lamp. His voice is calm, almost cold. "Let them come," he says to his staff. "We will break them, and never again will they cross our land." That night, the steppe grows still. Only the low, constant hum of engines echoes across the plain. Men sleep beside their tanks. Some whisper prayers. Others write letters they know they might never send. And in the German camps, laughter rises over the sound of engines. The generals are certain. The Red Army, they believe, is about to be crushed once and for all. But as dawn approaches, the laughter will fade. Because on these fields, under the burning Russian sun, the peasant tanks they mock will soon decide the fate of the Eastern Front, and of the war itself. July 5th, 1943, the Kursk salient. Before dawn, the horizon flickers with distant lightning, but it's not a storm, it's artillery. At 0230 hours, the Soviet guns open fire first. For nearly an hour, thousands of shells streak across the sky in a fiery arc, raining down on the forward positions of the German 9th Army to the north and the 4th Panzer Army to the south. The earth trembles. Men clutch the sides of their trenches as the air fills with the deep, rolling thunder of war. When the Soviet barrage finally subsides, General Hoth gives a grim smile. "So they know we're coming. Good. Then let them try to stop us." At 0430, the German offensive begins. Engines roar to life as the ground shakes beneath the treads of 2,700 tanks and assault guns. Tigers, Panthers, Panzerviehs, a moving wall of steel and fire. Luftwaffe bombers sweep overhead, strafing Soviet lines. The smell of gasoline and cordite fills the air. From his T-34, Sergeant Ivan Petrov can see the horizon glowing orange. His radio crackles. "All crews, engines on. Prepare to move. Kursk is under attack." The first German tanks appear through the smoke, massive silhouettes crawling forward, their guns belching fire. Ivan feels the shockwave as shells slam into the ground around him. Dirt rains across the turret. "Driver, forward, slowly!" The T-34 lurches ahead. Around him, dozens of Soviet tanks emerge from camouflage nets and dugouts, rolling into position. Anti-tank guns thunder from the trenches, their flashes cutting through the haze. Then the two great waves of armor meet. The first clash comes near Olkovatka, where the German Tigers lead the charge. Their 80 mm guns roar, punching clean through the frontal armor of the Soviet tanks. One T-34 explodes in a fireball. Another is hit and spins in circles, its track blown apart. But the Soviets don't retreat. They swarm. For every T-34 destroyed, another two take its place. They close the distance fast, too fast for the Germans to reload and aim properly. The T-34's Christie suspension lets them move quickly across rough ground where the heavier Panthers bog down. "Keep moving," Ivan shouts as tracer rounds streak past. "Close in, under their guns." The battle becomes chaos. At 300 meters, the T-34s fire point blank, their 70cm shells hammering into the thinner side armor of the German tanks. Smoke and flame mix with dust until it's impossible to tell friend from foe. A German radio operator screams into his set, "We're surrounded! Multiple hits! The Russians, they keep coming." By midday, the fields around Kursk are a furnace. Hundreds of burning tanks dot the steppe, black smoke rising into the sky. Yet even as the Germans push forward, they realize something is wrong. Every ridge they crest, every road they take, it's mined, fortified, defended. The Soviet defenses go deeper than anyone imagined. 8 belts of trenches, tens of thousands of anti-tank mines, barbed wire as far as the eye can see. By nightfall, the offensive has gained only a few miles. The cost, catastrophic. In the command tent, Hoth's officers pore over casualty reports. "We've lost 50 Panthers already," one says grimly. "Most to mines, engines overheating, tracks jammed." Hoth exhales slowly, eyes on the flickering lantern light. "We were supposed to crush them by noon," he says, "and now?" Outside, the wounded lie in rows. Flames from burning tanks cast long shadows across the steppe. The laughter of 2 days ago is gone. In its place, silence, punctuated only by the distant sound of Soviet artillery still pounding the horizon. And the peasant tanks, the ones they mocked, are still coming. July 12, 1943, south of Prokhorovka, western Russia. The morning sun rises over a world already burning. The air smells of oil, blood, and scorched wheat. Across the rolling fields near the Sel River, tens of thousands of men and machines are lined up for what will become the largest tank battle in history. In the pre-dawn haze, Sergeant Ivan Petrov climbs onto his T-34's turret and tightens his gloves. Around him stretch nearly 800 Soviet tanks, the 5th Guards Tank Army under General Pavel Rotmistrov, positioned for a counterattack against the Khenur SS Panzer Corps advancing from the south. He looks across the fields toward the faint shapes of German armor massing in the mist. Somewhere out there are the feared Tigers and Panthers, their long barrels already trained on the horizon. Ivan lights a cigarette with trembling hands. "So," his gunner Mikhail mutters, climbing up beside him, "today's the day." Ivan nods. "Today we stop them, or die trying." At 0830, a red flare arcs into the sky. Then the earth begins to shake. Hundreds of T-34s surge forward, their engines roaring in unison, treads grinding through mud and wheat. Dust and smoke engulf the steppe as the Soviet formation hurtles toward the Germans at full speed. From the opposite ridge, the elite Leibstandarte SS division opens fire. Tigers and Panthers, dug in and waiting, unleash a storm of armor-piercing shells. The first volleys tear through the Soviet ranks, T-34s erupting into fireballs, turrets flung skyward like toy caps. Yet the attack doesn't stop. The Soviet tanks keep coming, driving straight into the German line, closing the distance to where the Tigers' long guns can't easily depress. "Keep moving! Ram them if you must!" Ivan shouts through the intercom. The T-34s crash into the German positions. At ranges under 100 meters, the battle devolves into chaos, a swirling melee of metal and flame. Tank rams tank, guns fire point blank, and the flat steppe becomes a storm of steel. German radio chatter fills the airwaves. "They're too many. They're everywhere. Tiger 217 disabled. We can't hold them." Inside his tank, Ivan's world is noise and fire. His gunner fires shell after shell, the recoil slamming through the hull. Sweat drips down his face. Through the periscope, he glimpses a Panther pivoting to aim at them, then sees its turret burst into flame as another T-34's round punches through. By noon, the battlefield is unrecognizable. Smoke rises so thick it blots out the sun. The ground is a twisted graveyard of steel. Tigers smoldering beside shattered T-34s, both sides' crews crawling from wrecks or burning alive within them. A German tanker, Lieutenant Karl Hoffmann, stumbles from his destroyed Panzer IV, ears ringing. He had once called the Soviet tanks junk fit for farmers. Now, staring across the field at the endless tide of green machines advancing through the smoke, he mutters, almost in disbelief, "They just don't stop." By afternoon, the German offensive has stalled completely. Their vaunted armor, slowed by mud, mines, and the sheer mass of Soviet resistance, can advance no further. Every hill taken is retaken within hours. Every gain is bought with blood. Overhead, Soviet IL-2 Sturmovik ground attack planes scream down from the clouds, bombing and strafing the retreating German armor. Artillery pounds the rear columns, and soon the once proud through SS Panzer Corps begins to pull back. In the command post of the 4th Panzer Army, radio reports come in one after another. The voice on the line is trembling. Prokhorovka has become a slaughterhouse, Herr General. We've lost half our armor. General Hoth lowers the receiver slowly. Around him, officers avoid his gaze. The offensive, Hitler's last great gamble in the east, is dying before his eyes. Outside, the thunder of artillery continues, fading westward as the Germans begin their withdrawal. The steppe, once golden and endless, is now blackened and littered with the carcasses of tanks, 2,000 of them, German and Soviet alike. Among the wrecks, Ivan Petrov's T-34 stands motionless, its engine dead, smoke rising from its hull. He climbs out coughing, his uniform torn and face blackened with soot. Around him, other survivors gather in silence, staring at the horizon where the enemy once stood. The Red Army has held the line. Kursk, the great bulge in the front, still stands. And for the first time in the war, it is the Germans who are falling back. July 14, 1943, near Oboyan, western Russia. Rain sweeps across the smoldering plains. The battlefield around Kursk is a graveyard, a twisted forest of gun barrels and broken treads jutting from the mud. Smoke still drifts from blackened tank hulks. The stench of diesel and death hangs heavy in the air. A Soviet recovery crew trudges through the muck, marking wrecks with white flags. Amid the ruin, Sergeant Ivan Petrov limps beside what's left of his T-34. The turret is gone, the interior burned out, but somehow he's alive. He watches as more Soviet tanks, fresh reinforcements, roll past, heading west. Unlike weeks before, they move with confidence. There's no panic, no fear. The tide of war has shifted, and everyone can feel it. They said the Germans were unbeatable, Ivan mutters. Not anymore. Nearby, engineers raise a red banner over the smoking ruins of Prokhorovka Station. It flutters in the wind, tattered, oil-stained, but proud. In the German command post outside Belgorod, the atmosphere is leaden. General Hoth stands in front of a map peppered with red markers, Soviet counterattacks flanking both sides of his line. The reports are grim. The Sesudur's SS Panzer Corps has lost over 300 tanks, the 9th Army in the north has been repelled, and Soviet reserves are now pouring into the battlefield faster than they can be destroyed. A staff officer speaks quietly, almost afraid of his own words. Mine, General, Hitler has ordered a halt to Citadel. We are to withdraw and reinforce Italy. Hoth slams his fist against the table. Withdraw now, when we were so close? But even as he speaks, he knows it's a lie. They were never close. The enemy had known every move. The minefields, the traps, the sheer scale of Soviet preparation had made victory impossible. Operation Citadel, the last great German offensive on the Eastern Front, is over. In Moscow, Marshal Zhukov receives the news with a rare smile. So, they thought they would crush us, he says, lighting a cigarette. Instead, they broke their own necks. For months, Soviet industry had worked in overdrive, building tanks faster than Germany could destroy them. In the factories of the Urals and Siberia, women and children welded armor plates, cast turrets, and assembled T-34s by the thousands. Each tank was simpler, cheaper, and more reliable than the German designs. Where the Tiger demanded precision machining and rare materials, the T-34 could be hammered together in hours, rugged, fast, and easy to repair in the field. Even now, trains filled with fresh tanks rumble toward the front. For every German Tiger that rolls out of a factory, 10 Soviet T-34s are already on the move. And at Kursk, those numbers finally mattered more than engineering. By August, the Red Army begins its counteroffensive. The Belgorod-Kharkov offensive drives deep into the retreating Wehrmacht lines. Soviet tanks swarm across the open steppe, retaking village after village that had been under German occupation for 2 long years. On one dusty road outside Kharkov, Ivan Petrov's new T-34, fresh from the factory, still smelling of paint, rumbles forward beside hundreds of others. He looks out over the endless line of green armor stretching across the horizon. "Look at them," Mikhail says from the gunner's seat. "It's like an ocean." Ivan grins. No one laughs at us now. Over the radio, a command crackles. "Forward! For Kursk! For the motherland!" The engines roar as the Soviet spearhead rolls south. In Berlin, the news from the Eastern Front arrives like a funeral bell. Hitler's generals, once proud of their armored might, now argue over who to blame. The Tiger's heavy armor had failed to stop the flood. The Panther's engines overheated and caught fire. The Luftwaffe no longer ruled the skies. Even Heinz Guderian, Germany's famed father of Blitzkrieg, admits in a bitter report, "The enemy learned too well. Kursk was the death of our offensive spirit. What began as a strike to destroy the Red Army has instead destroyed Germany's last hope for victory in the East. From this moment on, the Wehrmacht will never again launch a major offensive on the Eastern Front." November 1943, the Kursk battlefield. Snow falls gently over the scarred earth. Frozen hulls of T-34s and Tigers lie side by side beneath a thin white blanket. Crows perch on the barrels of silent guns. A Soviet soldier places a single red carnation atop the wreck of a tank and whispers, "They called them peasant machines, but they saved a nation." Far away, in the factories of the Urals, the assembly lines still thunder. New T-34s roll out one after another, ready for the march west toward Kiev, Warsaw, and ultimately Berlin. The laughter of the German generals is long gone. In its place, the sound of 1,000 tank engines echoing across Europe, carrying the war back to where it began. Spring 1944, the road to Kiev. The thaw has come late. Mud swallows boots and tank treads alike, yet the Red Army keeps moving. Columns of T-34-85s, the new variant with a larger gun and thicker armor, rumble westward through ruined villages. Their green hulls gleam wet beneath the gray sky. In the commander's hatch of one of them, Sergeant Ivan Petrov grips the handles as his tank bounces over a cratered road. It's been almost a year since Kursk, but the memory still burns. The smoke, the heat, the sight of Tigers turning to twisted wrecks. "Feels different now," Mikhail says from below, loading another shell. "Back then we fought to survive. Now we're hunting them." Ivan nods. And they know it. Everywhere they go, signs of retreat, abandoned German guns, broken vehicles, hastily buried mines. What began at Kursk, the shift in momentum, the breaking of the myth of German invincibility, has grown into a relentless advance. From Kiev to Minsk, from the Dnieper to the Vistula, the Red Army pushes forward like a tide of steel. Soviet engineers throw pontoon bridges across rivers, rail cars deliver endless supplies of fuel, ammunition, and replacement tanks. The T-34, once mocked as a tractor with armor, has become the symbol of an empire reborn. Berlin, March 1944. In a dimly lit bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, Hitler's generals huddle around another map, just as they had in Belgorod the year before. But now, the arrows all point backward. Reports from the front are catastrophic. Army Group South in retreat. Army Group Center losing divisions faster than replacements can arrive. Hundreds of German tanks abandoned for lack of fuel. General Heinz Guderian, his face drawn, leans forward. "My Führer, we cannot outbuild them. Their factories in the Urals produce more tanks in a month than we can in a season. And their T-34, it's not primitive anymore." The new gun pierces even the Tiger's frontal armor. Hitler glares at him. "Nonsense. Ours are superior. It's leadership that fails, not machines." But even he knows the truth. Kursk shattered more than an army. It shattered an illusion. Germany had built marvels of engineering, yes, but marvels that broke down, overheated, or required fuel the Reich could no longer supply. The Soviets built machines that survived war. July 1944, Operation Bagration. The Red Army launches the greatest offensive in human history. 2.5 million soldiers, 6,000 tanks, and 30,000 artillery pieces thunder west across Belarus. Entire German armies vanish under the onslaught. From the turret of his T-34-85, Ivan Petrov watches the sunrise through smoke. His division moves in tight formation across the open plains, dozens of tanks abreast. "It's like Kursk," Mikhail says quietly. "No," Ivan replies. "This time, we're the ones breaking through." German positions crumble before them. Villages that once saw retreat now see liberation. Civilians wave red flags as the Soviet columns pass. The radio crackles with messages of victory. Minsk liberated, Vitebsk fallen, the Wehrmacht in full collapse. For Ivan and millions like him, it feels almost unreal. The enemy that once seemed unstoppable is now running. October 1944, somewhere near Warsaw. Captured German soldiers march past Soviet tank crews waiting by the roadside. One of them, a young panzer lieutenant, glances up at a passing T-34-85. Its armor is dented and smeared with soot, the paint flaking from months of battle, but it still runs, engine growling with life. The officer mutters almost to himself, "So this is the peasant's tank." Ivan, standing nearby, hears it. He looks at the prisoner, then at his own machine. Yes, he says simply, and it's the one that ended your war. The German looks away. May 1945, Berlin. The streets are rubble. The city burns. Red banners hang from shattered buildings as the thunder of artillery echoes through the ruins. In the heart of the city, Soviet tanks crawl forward, the same silhouette that rolled across Kursk 2 years before. A T-34 halts in front of the Reichstag. Its crew climbs out, battered, dirty, exhausted. Ivan Petrov among them. He looks up at the blackened facade, at the smoke curling from broken windows. "We made it," Mikhail whispers. They plant a flag, the red banner, atop the ruined German parliament, the same flag that had flown over Kursk. The laughter of German generals, once loud and certain, has long been silenced. Their peasant tanks, crude, unrefined, unstoppable, have crossed a continent and crushed a regime. As the city falls quiet, Ivan touches the side of his tank. The metal is warm beneath his hand. For a moment he thinks of all the men who never lived to see this day, and of the machine that carried them through hell to victory. The Battle of Kursk had not just been a clash of armies. It had been the crucible in which the Red Army was reborn, where Soviet industry, strategy, and resolve overcame arrogance and precision. The T-34 was never perfect. It didn't need to be. It was enough, fast enough, tough enough, and built in numbers that no empire could withstand. And on that final day in Berlin, beneath the red flag and the smoke of a broken Reich, the world finally understood. The machine the Germans once mocked as a peasant's toy had become the engine of their destruction.